Good morning. Welcome to the August 21st meeting of the Sunset Beach Environmental Resource Committee. We'll stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, I want to welcome Kimberly Rigsby as our new recording secretary. We look forward to working with you, Kimberly. And we'd like to give out a shout out of thanks to Cindy Nelson for stepping in for the last few months and until Kimberly was hired. First order of business is the draft agenda. Are there any amendments to the draft agenda? Otherwise, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item are the meeting minutes from June 19th and July 17th. After looking at the drafts of the minutes, there's some content changes that need to be made. And so I'd like to have a motion to table the review of those minutes until next month.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to public comments on the agenda. Any public comments? No? Okay. Next order is introduction of our new members. We have 4 people that were just sworn in this morning as for new terms on the ERC. 2 of them are new to the ERC, Jennifer Doyle and Kathy Trent. We welcome you to our group. We'd like to have you kind of introduce yourselves to everybody. And so we'll start with you, Jennifer.
Okay. I'm Jennifer Doyle. I've lived in Sunset for about 13 years. I'm a retired educator and administrator. Let's see. Probably my husband lives with me, by the way. Anything else?
Right. Now, I understand you have some environmental experience and background.
I do. I was the community development director of Horry County for a while. And I have environmental training for endangered species from Raleigh. And I worked for the Department of Energy for a good bit. So, yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Kathy.
Well, good morning. It's my pleasure to be here. My name is Kathy Trent, and my husband Mark and I moved here in 2019. We've owned our home since 2017 and longtime visitor to this area, have enjoyed our family growing up here during our summer vacation. So it's a pleasure to be a resident of Sunset Beach and to be a part of this committee. My experience and background, I recently retired after 43 years working for waste management. I did government affairs, legislative, regulatory, community relations, PR, engineering, et cetera, in terms of permitting for the variety of facilities that manage solid waste and recycling. And I have served on a number of boards, the Ohio State Solid Waste Management Board, so I am familiar with board work. I enjoy it, and it's really my pleasure to be here today to help serve the committee and the town. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think you both will bring a lot to add to our group. We have a very unique committee here in that we are comprised of people with a lot of different diverse backgrounds and experiences. So it's good to bring fresh blood in, and so we look forward to working with you. There's a few things that we should probably touch on for the new members' benefit. One is that this committee is appointed by elected officials, which means that our meetings are subject to public meeting laws. Anytime members of this group discuss things together in a group large enough to be a quorum, it falls under public meeting laws. That's why we created subcommittees. So we can have working groups that would come back to the full committee for discussion of their work. But this applies to socializing. This committee does not meet for parties. Even at town council meetings, we can't all come there and sit together. We have to be split up and spread out. And that probably applies to concerts and other public gatherings in town too. Probably the biggest thing that it affects is how we communicate by email. And you've received emails from me this week, and I start out the emails by captioning, do not reply all. And what that means is don't reply to everybody with your ideas and thoughts and things you want to talk about. If you want to talk to me, send me a message individually. If you want to include one or two other people in that, that's fine. But if you hit 4 people, we go over the limit, because 4 people is a quorum. And the same thing with our subcommittees. Our subcommittees are limited to 3 members of the ERC working together. Now we have made subcommittee activities open to volunteers from the community that would like to participate in what we're doing. But the fact that they're not a member, they're not appointed to the ERC doesn't create a quorum problem for us. Now, I don't expect you to remember all this. It gets confusing, but we'll remind you. We all learned it the hard way over many different experiences. So just something to think about. Lisa, is there anything I missed? Okay. The other thing I sent to everybody was the updated ERC rules and responsibilities that were revised and updated by town council earlier this year. The big change in that is that they included that we can work with volunteers and outside experts on the subcommittee work that we're doing, on the projects that we're doing. Are there any questions or anything anybody cares to discuss about the rules and responsibilities? The other thing I sent to everybody was a one-page document with the 2024 goals and objectives of the ERC for all the things that we told the council we had done last year and the things we wanted to work on this year. And that was what was approved for us to be working on. If there are new things that come up and we want to add it to the list, we can go to them and get their approval for that. If there's any questions about what we're supposed to be doing, that's kind of the Bible that we're following. Are there any questions about that? Okay. I will move into the business section of the meeting. Excuse me. We have 3 subcommittees. We have a climate subcommittee, we have a Twin Lakes subcommittee, and we have a green and recycling subcommittee. We need to find a place for the new members to participate in subcommittee work. Uh, The climate subcommittee is essentially Steve Hines and myself. The Twin Lakes subcommittee is Mila, Steve, and Candace. And the green recycling subcommittee, the leftovers on that committee are Candace and I.
It might help to note that that was recently, it had been its own two subcommittees and was combined into one, which
Right.
is kind of why it's leftovers.
Well, and things, the emphasis had changed, and so we combined those two together. So I'll start with you, Kathy. Do you have a preference for where you would like to get started and working with us?
Well, certainly my experience is green and recycling. I'm not quite sure what activities that you're working on now falls into each of these categories, but obviously that's where most of my background is. If I can be of assistance in trying to promote recycling, educational opportunities for it. And I don't know what other, when you say green, I don't necessarily know what you mean by that. But for right now, I think maybe my expertise falls best in that category, but I am certainly, willing to do anything the committee would like me to do.
Well, I think you're ideally suited for the recycling
Yeah.
subcommittee.
And the green part was sort of an evaluating opportunities for improving the environmental resources in town and educating our citizens about, what things can we do that improve our environment. We were interested, I think that's where we were looking at homegrown national parks, the National Wildlife Federation programs, tree canopy. Luckily, we have all those nice new UDO things that help support a lot of that. But so it was looking at a lot of different.
Is that Tree City USA opportunity in that category?
It had been sort of standalone because it's such a big thing and needed so much support from the town.
Yeah.
But one of our members, who's no longer part of it, he's not on ERC this year. Rich Back had been very involved with that with John and our former planning director. So now I think it's sort of standalone on here. It may fall under green. I think we'd have to look at where that would go. But one of the big things the Green Committee had been involved with was getting the Earth Day, Arbor Day established so that we could use that as one of our big
Yes.
opportunities to educate.
I've done a lot of Earth Day events,
Yeah,
touch a truck events,
yeah.
getting the recycling truck from GFL to come. Kids can, there's a lot we can
Oh,
do.
you're the
I
right
think.
person.
Oh,
You're the right
oh.
person
So
here.
my mind is going wild.
Yeah,
so
we would love
I just
love
say
to have you.
put me on that, and so I can help out in other areas. I'd love to. I'd love to learn new things too.
And I think that's important because all of us at some point may help another committee out. We just have to be very careful about not having too many members at any point where if we're meeting to
Right.
discuss what we're doing.
I do like research, gathering information, which I've watched several of your committees in the past, and I really applaud you for that level of activity. We can all learn a lot from going out and reaching out to other towns, agency folks. So glad to help out in that committee if I can.
Great.
Yeah, the idea of the subcommittees is to work as small groups where you can work together outside of a meeting like this. And then you put your activity together and bring it back to everybody. And then we discuss it and decide what we want to do with it.
Perfect.
So,
And I do think
And we'll
we'll
talk-
have a new emphasis on recycling this year. So
and we'll talk more about what'll be done in that area when we get down to that.
Thank you.
Jennifer, where
Hi.
do you see your best fitting in?
Well, I have one question quickly. The Climate Committee, can you tell me a little about that? I think I'm probably best suited because of research, and I've done some grants and different things environmentally that I had mentioned before. I was Associate Director of Community Development. So I like doing some of the events, but I think probably the strength would be on the Twin Lakes. Opt for that. But I'm happy to help too on any of the ones that we can. Educator, so of course I like doing research and learning new things. So I think probably Twin Lakes would be my choice, but I'd like to help anywhere I can. Sure.
Okay. Let's.
I did want to know a little about the climate committee though, because I looked at past minutes and things, and I'm trying to separate what different functions you're doing.
Yeah, the climate committee is really Steve and I have been doing the study on Jinks Creek and Tubbs Inlet and the changes that have been taking place out there, and that supports the town's effort on the Jinks Creek realignment dredging project. But it's really climate change that we've been focused on.
You've done a lot with increased risks for flooding and, the stormwater
Rain
management
and
risks
stormwater.
as climate
Mhm.
changes.
I was part of the Resilient Coastal Communities program
Okay.
study a couple of years ago, and the town nominated me, and I was appointed to the Coastal Resources Advisory Council for the Coastal Resource Commission,
Okay.
and so that's
Yay.
the area that I'm most interested in, but
Okay.
closely followed by the others. Well, let's kind of leave that where you fit best. It's kind of an open item right now. Let's go through a discussion about what each of the groups have been working on, and then we can talk more about kind of finalize the placement at that time. Are there any other changes any of the other members would like to make in the subcommittee, in their subcommittee work? Now,
I was just trying to figure out who's on what committee. I know you guys are.
Steve, I was just going to suggest, I would love for you to join us on the green and recycling, because I think we're looking at a different approach to Earth Day, Arbor Day,
Okay, that's fine.
and you would be very, very helpful. If that's okay
Yeah,
with you, but
I'm
boy,
okay. I'll go on any. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me.
And Steve Hines, are you on the Twin Lakes still?
Yes.
Okay. Just
I would just say too on the committees. I mean, if we have like pre-planned meetings, like whether now do you have to all physically be in the room, or can you be on a? If you're not here, can it be on a call if you're
Zoom.
having a meeting?
if we're doing our subcommittee meetings, I don't know why we couldn't work that out. Would there be a
Is
problem
some-
with that, John?
Yeah, because I've had to deal with.
Or Lisa, is there any reason? Because it's not an official.
It's not an
meeting,
official
just a-
meeting. It's a committee meeting, so
So
he
we
could
do however
you
we
could
need.
do Zoom.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've been having to deal with my mother and family issues like the last couple of months. I was up in Ohio to take care. So I just, in case I'm out of town, I would like to still be involved because I can be on the call.
Well, at least for the three of us,
Three.
because maybe I think John's got enough on his plate that he would not mind stepping back from green and recycling. And we could borrow your expertise when we need it. So that Steve and Kathy and I could do that.
Mhm.
What's your
that
thoughts?
sounds good.
We don't have to do that if you want to stay, but I think Steve could be really helpful for us.
Well, I'd like to serve more as a resource for the
I
subcommittees.
think that would be great
Yeah.
for us on that committee.
Mhm.
So
Free you up.
the problem I have is that as soon as you ask me to help, I jump in too deep.
Good for you.
So my objective is to be a resource and a help, not to take over, but sometimes I can do that too easily.
Well, I would just say, I think our experience is more that you're a great resource.
Okay. All right, I put together a slideshow for the activities that we've been through, and I'd like to probably go through that right now. Alan, if you can. You have the clicker?
It should be underneath the podium, John.
Oh, okay. All right. Something new, I put one of the beautiful sunsets from Sunset Beach as the opening for this.
Thought I saw the birds move out there.
Have a slide button on the side for on and off.
I was off. All right. First thing we'll do is give kind of an update for everybody on Tropical Storm Debbie. Tropical Storm Debbie was essentially from August 6th to 10th. The total rainfall measured on my weather station was 10.85 inches. As of this morning, the total rainfall for the month of August has just risen above 12 inches. So we've had a foot of rain in August with Debbie. With the storm, the peak winds reported by the National Weather Service were less than 50 miles an hour. So we didn't have a real high wind event. The Twin Lakes, what I've learned over the last couple months with the Twin Lakes is that if we have an inch of rain, the water level rises an inch in the lake. So the water level tried to come up almost 11 inches during the storm, but the drain was open to the Intercoastal Waterway, and it kept up. The fact that the rain was spread out over those 4 days, the draining kept up with the rainfall, and it really didn't flood badly. There was some washover on the cart path between the East Lake and the West Lake, and we have some pictures of that. But that was because the drain line under the walkway was clogged, and the town showed up. Dustin came out and looked at it and got the clog cleaned up, even though that's property of the golf course. The only other known flooding problem that I know of was at Sun Lakes Boulevard on the Calabash River, and had a picture of that. It's interesting that Debbie's rainfall was essentially the same total as the whole month of July. And the whole month of July was the highest total rainfall that we had had in town in 5 years. So we very quickly wiped out that record. I looked back through the records, and Tropical Storm Debbie's rainfall was greater than the rainfall from hurricanes, Florence, Isaias, Idalia, and Ian. The rainfall associated with those hurricanes was nowhere near the total that we had from Debbie. And Tropical Storm Debbie's rainfall was also the highest storm rainfall all the way back to the nor'easter in October of 2015. So that was the largest single storm event that we had had here in 9 years. So you don't have to have a hurricane to have a significant weather impact. This is the cart path on the Oyster Bay Golf Course. East Lake on the left, West Lake on the right. You can see the water level in the West Lake is lower. But there is a drain pipe there. It was clogged. It got cleared up, so everything should be normalized, should be levelized. This is Sun Lakes Boulevard.
Wow.
This picture was taken and provided by Councilman Pete Larkin. This photograph came from the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office, but this is Sun Lakes Boulevard. Lake Metcalf is on the right, and Calabash Rivers and the marsh are down to the left. But the You see all the grasses on the right? They float down the river and they get caught in the drain lines, and the spillway is over all the way on the end of the road, and that got plugged up with debris also. So the water backed up and flooded over the road. This road is owned by the people that live over there. It's not a town-owned road. But I don't think there was any permanent damage done to it. It was closed while it was flooded. Now we'll go on to the Twin Lakes. In the past month, the town of Sunset Beach, with help from us when they need it, has accomplished a lot. On July 25th, the Division of Water Resources showed up in town and did an assessment on the Twin Lakes for the aquatic weed program grant that they have. On July 26th, the Division of Water Resources advised the town of Sunset Beach that permits are not required for us to treat the Twin Lakes. So Lisa got Stillwater out there very quickly, and on July 29th, they treated the Twin Lakes just before Debbie came to town. Had a chance to get the treatment in and get it working before the floodwaters came. From what I was able to find out, the way the treatment works is it gets absorbed by the plants very quickly, so that it didn't get flushed out of the lakes when the floodwaters came. Some of it might have, but a lot of it got working and it did some good. And then we had the Tropical Storm Debbie, and right after Debbie went by, Stillwater came back and did their August treatment. So there's a lot of things going on with the Twin Lakes, and hopefully we'll start to see some impact from those treatments. And
So does the treatment kill the bad plants, or what's it do? Just control it, or is it?
No, it'll kill it.
Okay.
So it's a chemical treatment that just affects those plants?
It's an herbicide and an algicide.
So they just fall apart, sink to the bottom of the lake, or
Yeah, and that's the problem.
And then you got it all.
break it
All
out?
the way.
The open items for the ERC, we need to continue to work on finding grants for conservation, and we need to find out if there's any graduate study programs that are interested to come out and study the Twin Lakes. I talked to Professor Cahoon up at UNCW, and he thought that the graduate programs up there were already pretty well committed to things, but we can follow up with them if anybody has ideas of other places to go.
Didn't know I was going to be on the committee at the time, but I did contact because I was concerned when I saw some of the growth in the lake. And I don't live on the lake, by the way, but I'm concerned about it. But I contacted NC State, and I did have a conversation with a lady who's head of their environmental programs there. So we've been in touch
Good.
about a
Well,
graduate student.
That's what we want to do. We want to find out if there's graduate programs that want to come out and study it and help us understand it and come up with new ways of improving things. And we need to continue to work on providing the town with best practices for conservation and maintenance of the lakes. So this is a picture of, this is the West Lake. We have Shoreline Drive down here. That's the launch road. The drain line comes out here. But this was July 30th. So there's still a lot of weed and algae material in that lake. This is the East Lake. Over here you have the bird walk, Shoreline Drive, and this lake was heavily weeded and had a lot of algae in it early in the spring. But the treatments that had been done to it in the past have started to work, and hopefully this is how the West Lake will look in a matter of months. Now we move on to Jinks Creek and Tubbs Inlet. Here we are in August. We're in the middle, well, we're at the tail end of a period of king tides. King tides mean much higher than normal tides at high tide. Normally around here, high tides are from 4.5 to 5 feet. King tides go 6 feet or higher. The thing that's unique about August is that starting tomorrow, we go into another period where tides are expected to be higher than normal. So it's kind of between 5 feet and 6 feet. And with the Hurricane Ernesto that was going up through the Atlantic, stirring up the wave swells that we've seen on the beach in the last week, that adds to the high tide. And that could be as much as 1/2 foot to 1 foot more in the high tides. What that does is it impacts on Twin Lakes. We had this period in August. You'll see we also have another long period of king tides in September and October, and a smaller one in November. These are the kind of events that have the most impact on the beach and on the inlet. If we look back into September of last year, this is what the area looked like at low tide. But when the king tide came in, this is what it looks like. The water rises up and washes over the spit and floods in. Now, with that inrush of water with the high tides, that washes a lot of sand into the area behind the island. And that's what's building up the delta that we're finding there and filling in the channel at Jinks Creek. And in October, we had another king tide that washed over the spit again. Now, when you do this every day for twice a day for a week at a time, it has an impact. It brings a lot of material into the Jinks Creek area. And this is June. This is one of those high tide events that's kind of between a king tide and a normal tide. So there's not quite as much wash over, but it still is washing a lot of water into the Jinks Creek area. So we'll look at the last 3 months, June, July, and August, with August being right after Tropical Storm Debbie. This is Tubbs Inlet. This is a drone picture right up the mouth of the channel at low tide. You can see from the coloring that the water is starting to get shallow out on this end. There is a channel. It's got a slight bend to it, and it's starting to erode this shoreline here. A month later, on July 30th, the angle of the inlet is oscillating a little bit to the east, to the right here, and there's a little bit more erosion of that shoreline. This is on August 15th. It's not quite the same angle, but the same thing is happening. This channel is starting to move at the mouth is starting to move to the east. The shoreline is starting to move to the west. Big thing here is the color of the water. As Steve Hines had explained, that's what's called tannin stain.
That's from the fresh water that's exposed to a lot of oak leaves. The oak leaves put tannin in the water.
That's from flooding?
And that's from all the rainwater washing down.
Right, that's the runoff from all the rain
Yeah.
that we've had. And the water in the along the beach was that color for several days, and the water in Jinks Creek is still that color.
So where does the water spill from
Where's
into
it
the
come
ocean?
from?
Where does the water spill?
Mostly the Cape Fear River.
Okay.
Discharges a heck of a lot of water into the
Is it
coastal
inlet?
ocean here.
Is that Palm Cove over there on the left?
Yeah, Palm Cove is here. Now, this is Jinks Creek going up on the west side of the spit. And at low tide, you can see how much sand there is there, and how little water really is in that channel. There is this area around the grasses that has, there's a lot of turbulence that when the flood tides come in, that's what's eroded out that hole in the channel. And there's another one a little further down here. But what we've seen over the last year is that this channel is migrating to the east. These grasses, the channel actually, this shoreline used to be right about here. But that's been moving to the east. This is looking at it a month later. You'll notice this line in the sand. When the tide goes out, the water that's trapped behind the spit tries to cross over the spit and has tried to breach that spit, but it's never had enough force to it to make it work. And here we are on August 15th. And you'll see that there's been some more movement of this channel to the east. That breach has pretty much filled in on this picture. I was out there walking around on that spit on Sunday, and you couldn't see any sign of it at all anymore. But changes like this in an inlet hazard area are normal. They happen all the time. They'll be moving around, and our objective is to monitor these things and to see what the impacts might be. Because if there is a breach through that spit and there's a lot of water flowing into here, the channel that comes down here is going to hit the end of the roadway there at Palm Cove. Now that shoreline is sandbagged, but the water has the erosion's gotten behind the sandbags, and it's created a lot of turbulence in the water that's created a deep hole there. But big thing is that this area in here is filling up with sand and is elevating. And we're starting to see the growth of grass islands here. And so we're seeing the marsh start to migrate towards the ocean. So this is looking towards the east from the town towards Ocean Isle Beach. And here you see the grass islands. And with the realignment the dredging project at Palm Cove and the town are working on. We're going to have to try to find a route through here for the navigation channel to get dredged.
When are they going to do that?
Town's just received notice that they qualify for the grant, but so the next step is for the town to hire some engineers and start designing the project and trying to get permits to go ahead and start building it. So last time we did a dredging project, that engineering permitting activity took a couple of years, didn't it?
How often does it have to be dredged if this is a continual movement? Do we know?
No,
Oh,
Okay.
we don't know. The answer is it depends.
on the weather
Depends
and the
on how-
tides.
Now, the other part of the study that we've done is we worked with one of the homeowners, or one of the property owners at Palm Cove. But this is kind of busy, but what this shows is the movement of the channel. Here you see the main channel for Tubbs Inlet right now, but out in 2017, this channel came around here. And from 2017 till today, it has moved to the west.
Do we know how much, John, in terms of like a distance? I mean, it's closing in, you can see that.
Well, the distance is variable. And this, right here, it's moved a lot, and down here, it's moved a little.
Okay.
So we use these lines to try to just show you where it started and where it is today. But right now, it's been kind of stable, although it continues to move to the west. And the same thing over here in Jenks Creek. This shoreline at Palm Cove has actually eroded and moved. That one I know is about 50 feet. But the channel here has migrated to the east. But again, right now it hasn't migrated a whole lot in the last year. But it is happening. So anyway, we're watching this, and hopefully the engineering people designing the dredging project can benefit from this information and in their design. Any questions about any of this?
Is this the Palm Cove grant that was discussed several meetings before? Is that
Yeah. Yes.
And John, if I can elaborate on the dredging project that we are working on, the project has been deemed navigable. So we do qualify for the grant. The application is working through the process with the state. And if we are awarded, then we will receive a contract. In the meantime of waiting for all of that to happen, I am working on the RFP to go out for engineering and consultants. And the town council will receive those bids and award that contract after we know that we have secured the grant.
And the funding will come from the grant and partially from the Palm Cove?
Correct.
Community.
It is a 3/4, 1/4 grant now. When we did the project, or the first half of the project that we just completed, it was a 2/3, 1/3. And so the last half of our dredging project is under the 3/4, 1/4, and this one would be completely under the 3/4, 1/4.
3/4 grant and 1/4 the Palm Cove community.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Steve, is there anything you want to add to the climate?
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
All right. I will move on to Twin Lakes. We talked about the accomplishments and the impacts from Debbie and Lisa. We haven't heard anything from about the assessment that was done on that. So,
I have not. And Mila has just come back into the country. So we are working with a gentleman that is out of Whiteville. I don't remember exactly the organization, but he did come, and Candace and Dustin went with him and surveyed the lakes and took samples. And we are just waiting on his report now.
I think the way it works, they're assessing all the grant applications, and depending on what they find, and I believe they found noxious weeds here, so that
I think they needed to find invasive to qualify for
Uh-huh.
that grant, and both lakes had invasive weeds.
Yeah. So the way the process works, they explained to me that they will assess and evaluate everything, and because the deadline for the grant is October 15, they won't make their awards and decisions until January. And if we do qualify, the funds will be dispersed in March. So fingers crossed.
Correct, for spring projects.
Yeah, for spring project.
Mhm.
oh, will they give us a report on their assessment?
I can get in touch with them, but I think I think they would just send us probably notification if we qualify, what their findings were, I believe at that stage, but we can reach out to them.
Yeah.
And that's the way I understood the process as well, that the assessment was a qualifier for the grant application.
Yes.
Well, that's good.
That, is there a way, John, you mentioned the clogging of the drain and stuff affecting some of the lake. Do we know if there's a way to stop that in the future? Now, I know, Dustin, you said went out and they unclogged it, but is that going to keep happening?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
There probably is, but again, that cart path belongs to the golf course.
Yeah.
And that really is their responsibility.
But we had to do it, right?
But the town had to do it to protect the
Yeah.
properties. And Stillwater has a contract now to do monthly treatments of the two lakes. And they've done that. They did July and they've done August. And they've told us that it'll take 60 days or longer to start to see an effect from that. But if we
Just on a good note, on the West Lake, which they've done 2 treatments now, you can see a difference, and I think some of the difference we're seeing is the water coming from Debbie, that the water levels are higher. But one of the things, because I live on West Lake, one of the things I would hear from neighbors is, you don't see fish jump anymore. And I would swear since that last treatment, we finally have had a few fish jump. They couldn't because they were so tangled in the weeds.
The
So it's
weeds,
having an
they couldn't
effect.
come up. Okay.
Having a good effect.
And the weeds are going to the bottom, you're saying, right? The sediment,
Some,
they're not being removed?
I think what they some of the things anchor at the bottom of the lake, and some of it, like the algae, both lakes have filamentous algae, and that it just looks like long grass. You can't. It's hard to see that difference.
Yeah.
That doesn't anchor at the bottom. That's just floating there.
And John, just to clarify, the contract that we have with Stillwater is for the 10 town-owned ponds and the 2 lakes. It's not just the 2 lakes.
yeah, you're right. I keep forgetting about the other things.
Yeah.
Is that ongoing all year round treatments, or does it stop in the winter?
It's an annual contract for monthly service.
I'm thinking if we can get some report from the Rob Evans on what they found, that would help Steve Wilson do a better job on the lakes. So,
Do we know, are they measuring the effect on it at all, Lisa? I mean, these treatments that we're doing every month, are they doing like a 6-month evaluation of, I know you're saying you can notice a visual difference. Are they doing any of that
started
collection?
so recently. It'd be hard for them to do.
Yeah, I'm thinking 6 months out maybe, right?
Yes, he monitors his treatment cycles and adjusts accordingly.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question. Do we know why the algae in the lakes are the condition they are. I thought we had said in previous meetings that perhaps it might be the runoff coming from the golf courses and the residents living around the lake, and that there could be some opportunity to work with both the golf course and the residents on keeping some higher grass materials to filter the incoming and not let grass clippings and et cetera. And is that a part of the ongoing work we're doing in that committee? I mean, treatment is great, but there's also a part of prevention to it. So I was asking that question.
Lisa had asked us to look at a shoreline plannings brochure, coming up with educational information for
Mr.
people
Wilson
that-
provided us with some shoreline plantings that would be beneficial for the area.
Good.
And I have requested that subcommittee work on an educational brochure that we'll be able to hand out to anybody coming to the markets or Sunset at Sunset, or coming within town hall. And we can also provide those to all of the residents that live around any of the ponds or the lakes.
And is the golf course willing to work on that too?
That's my question.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got deep diving into that. I apologize.
We are in conversation with the golf course.
I know it's a
Because
great
of that, okay, are they gonna, in the future,
I know
are they
around
gonna
the state, they
take
have science and feeds into Cape Fear River or water basin or whatever it is. Maybe put signs up as well. So,
Yeah, and it's not just the people that live along the shoreline of the Twin Lakes.
right.
the other pond?
There are large areas of stormwater runoff from the community on the west end of town, where the stormwater system for the town channels all that water into the lakes. I think that's one reason why the East Lake overflowed into the West Lake. Is that there's a lot more stormwater feeding in the East Lake than there is the West Lake. So the people that live in those communities, they need to be encouraged, educated, and encouraged to do rain gardens and take other planting measures to try to filter the water before it gets into the stormwater drains. So we do have a big educational challenge there to try to get people to improve the stormwater. Now that one of the big factors we believed was causing the problem this year was that we had such reduced rainfall the prior 2 years, and that the environmental temperatures are so much higher than they've been in the past.
And the shallow of the East Lake.
Right.
Yeah.
And now that we've had this gift of all this water, the water's come up. We've had 10 inches of rain is 18 million gallons of water on those lakes.
Wow.
And that flushed through the lakes out into the intercoastal waterway. So we cleaned out a lot of the nutrients that had built up during the period of drought, and the water was stagnant in the lakes. But with all that fresh water that's come in, it brings in new pollutants. That's washed off the roads, it's washed out of the yards, it's coming from everywhere that the water comes from, and it gets into the lake. So now we've got a whole new set of pollutants in the lake that will cook and brew and start to create their own problems. So the treatments that are being done need to continue to be done, and possibly even expanded a little bit. We'll just have to see how things work. But based on the results that we see in the East Lake, the treatments have been very effective.
And John, if I could elaborate just a little bit more, and I promise I won't talk quite so much going forward. We are dealing with two different piping systems in the lakes. There's one corrugated, one pipe that connects the East Lake and the West Lake. The piping system that goes out into the waterway is controlled by the town by boards. So we are able to lower the lake at our whenever we decide to. If the lakes have too much rain, then we take boards out and it lowers. Anytime that we have a storm coming that we know is going to produce a lot of water into the lakes, we lower those. So that pipe is maintained and cleaned out all the time. The one that's under the cart path, not so much. So we are in conversation with the golf course to get them to maintain that pipe on a more regular basis.
Thank you, Lisa. You can speak up anytime you want.
Yeah. That's good news.
Okay, then we move on to the green recycling area. There's been a lot of conversations on Facebook about the town's recycling program and whether it's worth paying money to participate in it or not. One of them grabbed my attention the other day, and I couldn't help myself but to participate in the discussion. And some people appreciated it, and some people didn't. But recycling is a very controversial area, as you know, Kathy. And there are people that just don't believe that it's worth the money spent on it. But I believe in North Carolina and South Carolina that it is. We are fortunate that there's a company called Sunoco who does recycling. There are 51 facilities that Sunoco has in North Carolina and South Carolina related to recycling. Now, some of those are office buildings, but there's a half a dozen material processing centers. And one of the reasons Sunoco is into the recycling business is they use the recycled material as raw materials for their manufacturing processes, particularly cardboard. Now, there's a lot of areas of the country where recycling is just people have given up on it because they don't have any market for the recycled materials. And there have been a number of news stories on the national news that make it sound like there's a national problem with recycling. I think there's localized problems with recycling, but just like there are localized solutions to recycling, and we happen to be in an area where I believe recycling works. In the past, the ERC has had exhibits on recycling at the Earth Day Arbor Day. Put together a recycling brochure that we give out with the reusable grocery bags that the town has provided for everybody. And but I think it's time that we update that brochure and that we think about creating a recycling frequently asked questions brochure that that we can give out to people at Sunset at Sunset and Earth Day Arbor Day, and that are available in the town lobby for people that come in, and that we can put into web pages on the town website that people, if they're looking for information, they find out what we know about that. So that's one thing I would like the recycling green committee to look at doing.
I think that's a great idea.
John, may I add to that? I think we talked about it at previous meetings. I think that brochures and all this dissemination of information is great, but I think if we could have a town hall in our community center, anywhere, with representatives of the recycling company, and Kathy, you probably know more about this, that could visually present on what they do, how they do it, to kind of make people see it, feel it, and convince them. I think visual approach would be more valuable.
Well, there are videos on YouTube on material processing facilities that show how they do that.
Yeah.
How the material is received, how it's processed, how it's sorted, and where the material goes. we've had representatives from Sunoco come to ERC meetings and talk to us about it. It's been a couple of years, and maybe it's time to do that again. And Kathy, your idea about getting GFL to,
Well, the question I have is, who is your recycling provider? I know GFL picks up the material, but where do they take it? And there's a whole host of follow-up questions that I'm happy to explore with your guidance on who to contact. But there are lots of videos, how to recycle, what materials you put in the bin, how you put them in, how they're collected, what type of processing facility. I mean, I'm very familiar with the basic dump it, sort it, send it to a real processing facility, up until you've got state-of-the-art recycling facilities. So I'm very familiar with all of that. And, you know, my company's experience has been, it's continual education. It's you have great opportunities coming up with some of your town events to do that. And again, the touchy-feely thing is what works the best. Having, you know, ambassadors that talk about how do you recycle right, where is the material going, because the average person doing the recycling wants to, their hearts are in the right place, but they want to understand how to do it correctly and how does this material make it back into a reusable product. So that's an educational process. It can be done. And I'm glad to talk more about it, work with whoever. But yeah, I would love to talk to the providers so I can gain some direct information to see how we could do those events. But historically, like if you had a town event and you had a recycling truck there, you had representatives there, we could talk to people about, here's what you put in the recycling bin.
And here's
No
what you don't.
bags, no
You also have a lot of-
clean, and you know, there's just some simple things that people can do to make it all ultimately get to the manufacturer that's going to reuse the material.
And there's a ton of people that dump, their transients come here for vacations, they
I was going to
dump
say tourism.
plastic cans, bottles, because anytime these hurricanes show up, my backyard flood, and there's like I picked up hundreds and hundreds and see, there's a huge problem with plastic in the water.
Yes.
And so, like, you know, sometimes you have to take all your plastic bags and take them, instead of sticking them in the garbage can, take them down to Food Lion or whatever. But there are people dumping tons of material in the waterway. It's a big dumping area. I mean, I see bottles, cans. I see cans from like the 70s that dug up like Schlitz old, but they dump all their stuff in the water when they're going up and down the waterway.
So how do you get,
On the
on
boat
Mila's
ramp,
and yours,
really on the boat ramp, you should say, you know,
how do you get the tourists that we have and the seasonal people aware of the recycling? That's one of my questions, because we rely some on tourism, obviously, and they're not the temporary people. And then how do you get the information to the common person? I know there's videos and I know we have the town events, but how do you get it to just the average person to say, this is where you go to get the information on recycling? You know, where are the recycling bins? That's the other thing. Where are
we're looking for better ways to do all those things. And
Yes.
as far as from what I know, the Brunswick County has agreements with Sunoco Recycling. And there is a recycling facility in Wilmington, but I believe most of the material goes up to Jacksonville, North Carolina.
That's another thing I've heard people say, neighbors. I say, hey, do you recycle? They go, well, I don't have a recycling can because it ends up in the same place. I go, no, it doesn't. And they start arguing about it. And I'm like, look, you know, why would they have two cans?
I think the last time that the recycling committee, and it's been a few years, because when we were a smaller committee, you couldn't address everything. You had to pick and choose. But one of the first things we focused on was recycling and getting updated information. I think at that time they said that in North Carolina, one of the biggest issues with recycling is contaminants and what's going into the recycling, and then it's not usable. But out of the things that are processable, 85% of it can be successfully recycled. And the market's changed so much, because if you looked at it 10 years ago, there wasn't a big demand, I don't think, for paper and cardboard. But as our use of paper media has changed so much, that's now a market. So I think those are things that people are interested in. And John's right, our challenge is updating the materials, taking advantage where we can of our opportunities, because all ERC can do is advise and educate. We don't legislate. We can't make people do anything, but we're here to help our neighbors understand what we can do better.
And a lot of people say, well, I've seen them dump a recycling container in with the trash, but
Yeah.
they didn't look in the recycling container and see how it had been contaminated by
Right.
people putting their
Other
trash in
stuff.
there
Sorted.
and making it unrecyclable. So that's it's probably a bigger problem in an apartment or a townhouse area where people share their recycling and waste disposal. But some people do it at their houses too. You just lose track about where you should put something. And
And John, I can give you a history from the town council's perspective on recycling. Many years ago, when Brunswick County decided to bring residential recycling into the county, the town council at that time negotiated with Waste Industries at that point, GFL now, to offer the town a reduced rate in order for us to be able to pass it on to the residents that did want to recycle by the town staff administering the program. So we send out the applications, we process the payments, we pay GFL. Now we pay them monthly. We are the correspondents between the residents and them. So we have taken the administrative duties completely away from them. That is the way that we are able to offer the lower price. Like for myself, if I go to recycle, which I absolutely do, I raise 2 environmental sustainability children, that I pay a much higher rate through the county as I live in the county than the residents of Sunset Beach do for that. So our reduced rate, and we negotiate that rate annually with GFL. And for the topic of, because in the very beginning, we received a lot of phone calls about, I've just watched the garbage people put the recycle bin in the back of the garbage and I just don't understand. So we contacted and found out the answers. And the person that is coming in front, that is doing the actual garbage, opens the recycle bin and determines if it is contaminated. If so, they put a marking on that can or a tag or something to indicate that that is not a recycle cart. And then they dump that cart. Those phone calls have lessened over the years as people, with all the educational information that has been disseminated through the public and through the town, has made that process a lot easier for people to know what to put where. And John, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago, the ERC actually, either we made magnets or we had received magnets from Keep Brunswick County Beautiful, and those were provided to the rental companies for the rental homes, and are available at Town Hall. I don't know if we still have them, but we
Those come
did.
from Brunswick County, their office.
Mhm.
well, actually, the magnets came from the state, from the DEQ,
And they could.
and we had thousands of them.
Right.
And we've given them all away. And
Right.
but they've been updated, so it'd be
And we
be
can
a
order
good time-
more, for
Be a
sure.
good time to order more and have
Mhm.
them available for
Mhm.
Sunset at Sunset and Earth Day, Arbor Day. I would also add that, people don't realize that the town has a special rate, has a discounted rate, but they also don't realize that recycling is not a service provided for in our taxes. And a lot of them move here from places where recycling is included in their tax rate. But their tax rate is probably 2 or 3 times higher than what the tax rate is in Sunset Beach. And I don't know if we've got a new accounting on that, but the last time the finance director looked at that, it would have, if we made recycling mandatory in the town, it would raise the tax rate by 3 cents.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the tax value of your house, multiply that times the 3 cents, you'll find that the monthly or the annual charge the town has for recycling is a lot less than it would be if it was in your taxes. So we should be thankful that the town's doing what they're doing.
And just for an update for this year, we sort of baptized Kimberly by fire because right as the time that she was starting, we sent out the applications. Some years we just send to the actual subscribers, and some years we choose to send to the entire population of improved property inside town limits. And since we've had so much development in our communities, this year we opted to send to everybody. So we actually sent out 5,950 applications, and Kimberly can attest that they are coming in droves. We have approximately 1,000 to 1,200 customers, and we would love to see that rate quadruple or even max out. Would be awesome.
Tell
Yeah,
the garbage company that if you have, it's illegal, I shouldn't say illegal, to pick up recyclable materials. I mean, if they said, hey, you got to pull this out of your trash and recycle it. Either you do it in a receptacle or you get a can. I mean, because it's what I see happening. I know people that live elsewhere and they have recycling. They put it in the can. They just dump everything in garbage can, and they're going to take the path of least resistance. I mean, the ones that don't do it. I mean, maybe the garbage company could say, hey, I'm not picking up aluminum
Refuse to
cans.
pick it up.
Well,
Or you have to recycle them.
We've got some good opportunities coming up where we can educate the public, and I think the first one will be Sunset at Sunset, and that's going to be one of our challenges. What do we want to present and how? And that's coming up.
I would present.
That's further on here.
I'd probably
the
present
Sunset.
information about plastic, in the water, and it's just it ends up in the water. And if you don't recycle plastic, it ends up in the water, and you end up polluting the fish population, everything. There's all kinds of articles about it.
Yeah.
My buddy, he has a brewery. We're looking at, plastic for something, and there's all kinds of bad information. Plastic is in everybody's body. It's just going to increase if you don't recycle it.
Yeah.
Last year, after the recycling program not ended but got done, we looked at the statistics, and the overall recycling rate for the town appeared to be very low. It was like in the 25% range. And we were very disappointed in that. So we dug into the details further. And what we realized is that the people that live here year round, the permanent residents, 50% of them were participating in the town program. Now we thought, well, maybe we should be able to do better than that. But if you go up to the convenience center on Seaside Road, where there is the dump site for recycled materials, that place is always busy with people bringing their own recycling. So there's a large number of people in the area that recycle, and rather than pay the town for the transportation of it, they haul it up there and dump it themselves. So our actual recycling rate around here is pretty good. There's no way to measure the dump site use, but when we get all the final data for the program together, I'd like to get a copy of that so we can do that kind of analysis again and see what the numbers tell us and how that's changed. But that's really good that we have such a great sign up this year.
And a lot of the comments that we've heard from people who say that they're not recycling, that they do take their stuff to the convenience site, is because they don't rent their properties. And they're not necessarily leaving on a Saturday. They're leaving on a Sunday or a Monday, and choose not to pay for the service, but rather to take theirs to the recycling, the convenience site on their way out of town.
Or they're part-time residents. They're not here all the time.
All around.
And rather than pay for something like that, they do it themselves. So, but we can't force anybody to recycle. The town council has made it very clear they're adamantly opposed to mandatory recycling. And so our big challenge is education. And
Maybe on the brochure that comes out too, you might want to have a couple points on the brochure, the benefits of recycling. Maybe it's there, I didn't read it, but like the brochure you send out
Mhm.
to everybody, you might want to put on there like, hey, here are the benefits of recycling, and you're actually saving money by not having to drive every week to a recycling facility. And
oh, you're on the
Cost.
subcommittee now, so you can.
I'll,
make
I'll put it
sure-
on there. I'll put it on there. I'll put it on.
Well, that's brochures going from the
We'll
town.
have
I
some
know I
big
got mine in the mail, but I haven't
Well,
opened it yet. But
Oh, yeah.
It's like-
I don't know if there's
lazy
anything
people,
on it
lazy.
about that.
All right, moving on.
Pass this to John.
Next item on the agenda is the GSATS grant for a pedestrian walkway.
That's just something for the minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
That's-
Thanks.
Um,
Yeah, I saw that, Steve.
Lisa, do you want to speak to this item? or-
Sure. This, the Grand Strand Area Transportation Study is the MPO body, and they have grants available for pedestrian, sidewalk, multimodal paths that they will help with design, engineering, construction. And it has always been a dream of mine to connect the town of Sunset Beach to the town of Calabash by a walkability route. So I am in the process right now of submitting a grant for GSATS has over $1 million to throw to projects of this type. So I'm in the process of writing the grant application now for applying for a grant to go from the Sunset Beach Town Park to the Calabash Bridge that will have a new multimodal path over it. And then the Calabash Park will be right there as well.
So it'd be like a path along the road, or is it just?
It'll be a path separate from the pavement, probably 3/4 of a mile of county roadway.
The bridge that's being redone
Yes, the
already has
Calabash
the
River
bike.
Bridge.
Already has
Mhm.
the bike and walking path. I kind of
Mhm.
walked down there to see when I saw it
Yes.
in a minute. That it's already got that.
Yes,
so
it
it'll just
does.
be a continuation kind of up
Mhm.
here. Okay.
Ocean Isle should do something too, come this way. That's a great idea.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, that,
The area between Seaside Intersection and the roundabout at Ocean Isle Beach is actually all county. So, and counties in North Carolina don't own any roadways.
So what would they, if they approve that, when would they actually do that construction?
It would be a town project. We would be awarded the grant, and
Okay.
it's a matching grant. And of course, the more match you make, the better off your chances of getting it.
Yeah.
So once I get the application almost complete, the town council will decide what our match would be in that grant application. So I hope to have that on the September agenda for the council to consider.
Do they allow the match for the grant? Just because I've done grants at Coastal, I've done the $1 million ones basically. But
That would be
will the match be part of your town staff hours? Is that part of the match?
It can
All
be
this work
in
you're doing?
kind,
Okay.
or it can be
Okay.
just straight
Straight
funds.
funds.
Mhm.
Okay.
Would it be a shared use for bicycles and pedestrians?
Yes, ma'am.
So coming from the Calabash side, would they do anything on their side to come to the other side of the bridge?
From Calabash's standpoint,
Yeah.
from the bridge like to Napa, I think they have something in the works.
Oh.
I'm
Okay.
not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. But I do think that Calabash is interested in promoting the walkability throughout the county, as the rest of us are.
actually,
given
what the
Calabash.
Beacon reported was Calabash is interested in that as well as Carolina Shores.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
Somehow or another connecting down to the bridge, because Calabash is going to create a park at the bridge, and that'll be a big attraction for people on the river there.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And
That's
then
one of
just a plug for the other part. Partif Board meets Friday at 9 a.m. and we will know if we get the $500,000 Partif grant to start the construction for the Majestic Oak Park on the island.
Oh,
Gosh. Your prayers.
Thank you.
exactly.
Next item is Sunset at Sunset
job.
discussion. We have booths available to us. We're going to share what the town has, and we're going to have our own. So we will be able to have space for a climate exhibit, as well as the recycling. And what ideas do people have on what we should be doing there?
And John, this is a good time to plug Amy Goodrich is our events coordinator, and she is in charge of the organization and execution of Sunset at Sunset. So she is always looking for volunteers to help with the organization of that, and she will be working with this committee closely with the materials that you want to produce and the setup and the scheduling of you operating your section of the town booth during the event on October 5th, first Saturday in October. And it's at the town park.
The recycling program is open till the end of September?
It is. But we have to be careful when you're at the markets or at Sunset, because the recycling program is only available for town residents or
Right.
town within town
Right.
limits.
Okay.
Maybe what we can have would be information for people who are outside the town limit, how they can apply through, I think they just go through GFL, don't they?
They do.
So we can maybe have that available, because that does come up at previous events. That's always a question.
Maybe for those who are hauling, is the locations of where those are if they choose not to participate in the town
Yeah,
program,
that's
unfortunately, because
one
they're
of the
outside.
brochures we have.
Okay,
The
so
county
that's good. Yeah,
provides that.
yeah. So if we could get the county to
Yeah.
do that again.
Yeah, they do. But it would be great. At one of our events, we did have the county recycling person come down. It was so helpful because she had so much more knowledge than we do, and that person is gone. There's a new one there, but we can work on that. So I guess what I would suggest, what we've been talking about Sunset at Sunset and what we might present, now that we maybe have our committees newly formed, the committees can take a look and at the September meeting, talk about what we want to present.
Good idea. Because we have the September meeting and then we have the event before we have our October meeting, so we have to finalize our plans at the September meeting.
And then maybe we can, the individual subcommittees, if we have materials that we need printed or whatever, we can work with Amy to have that done. Because I think on the recycling side, if we redo the brochure, we'll need to have that reprinted. And we'll need our QR code master to help us update that. And that's John, for those that don't know.
Oh,
And once you learn how to do something, you have to do it forever.
Everybody, and you do it for everybody else too.
That's a good plan. All right, the next is the National Wildlife Federation Certified Wildlife Habitat discussion.
John, could I just recommend for that we put that in the Green Committee short term, because there's so many different programs that have been suggested, like the I'm trying to think of the name. What's the homegrown national parks, the National Wildlife, so that we can maybe come up with a suggestion that we can hand out information, but here's what the town wants to promote. So maybe we can take a look at these different things, think what the benefits would be, and present that, and then come up with a decision.
I like that idea.
What is that?
The National Wildlife Program National Wildlife Federation has a program for homeowners that want to become a certified wildlife habitat. You have to have certain things available in your property. You have to have shelter, you have to have food, you have to have water, you have to be favorable to wildlife. And if you are that way and you fill out their application, you can get certified as a wildlife habitat.
It sends you a little plaque then.
You can buy a sign for your yard that tells everybody that you're
There's a certified checklist what you have to do.
right.
Oh, okay.
And it costs $20
$20.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh,
Now-
where'd you get that? Is it-
off their website.
oh,
The
okay.
wildlife.
Now, if if we get 150 people in the town to get certified as wildlife habitats, then we can get the town recognized as certified wildlife habitat. So our challenge would not only be to educate people about this and encourage them to do this at their own property, but to get enough of them that we can get the town recognized as a wildlife habitat.
Might be good to talk about that too at the sunset, but
And would that give us better funding opportunities through National Wildlife Foundation? Maybe for a grant?
I
If
mean,
we are town
Do
certified?
those, Lisa, this is something you may be able to answer better, but when we have those, whether it's Tree City or certified wildlife habitat or whatever, do those things provide us any benefit at the state level when you're looking for grants and funds?
They could.
That's what I'm wondering. Okay.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Guessing they
Well,
do.
I think it also provides to the public an opportunity to see Sunset Beach as truly an environmentally sustainable type of community
Right.
when they're involved in like a Tree City USA, a certified wildlife habitat, the coastal resource management. It sees that we're overall trying to be protective of the environment of which we live in. So I think even if you don't get any money from it, it's still seen as a positive reflection on the communities that we live in. But I do think it could provide some benefit
Look
in
at that.
grants because we're
That's
serious about it. You know,
Yeah.
we do
And all of the
things-
grants have check boxes.
Yeah.
If you do
Right.
certain things,
Do
it's a
you-
checkbox that awards you more points.
Would it give us any leverage with developers as far as preserving trees
There you
and
go.
not clear cutting?
Okay,
There
no,
you
I
go.
wasn't going to say that.
Yeah.
Good.
There you go.
Mhm.
That would be number one priority.
oh,
Well, in terms of clear cutting,
all
I
the
think
trees
that's
that cut
pretty
down
strong
here, right? There's no
ordinance.
place for the animals to go.
Yes.
The next item is the New Hampshire Lake Smart program discussion. State of New Hampshire has a Lake Smart program where they educate people on how to take care of their lakes. They get people signed up to do buffers around the lakes, to take measures in their own property to prevent contamination of the lakes and pollution of the lakes. And if you become part of this program, you get certificates and you get recognized as being part of this. And we had some initial discussion about coming up with a similar kind of idea for the Twin Lakes. But as Lisa pointed out earlier in the meeting, there are a number of other lakes in the town, retention ponds and such, that people live around and enjoy. And so we ought to have a bigger program that not only includes Twin Lakes, but all the water properties in town. And I'd like the Twin Lakes Subcommittee to take a look at that and come up with some ideas on how we would do that. So
That's a
All
great
right.
idea. Yeah.
And the fountains and the aerator systems are being installed within the next 60 days.
the what?
Wow.
The aerator
Yeah.
system
Aerator, good.
in the
Wow.
East Lake,
Good
and
news.
then several of the ponds behind us are getting aerator systems and fountains. as well.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Good to know.
Just know that Mila wants special lights on her ponds.
I do,
A lot
and
of
music too.
wildlife. A lot of wildlife.
They're
Make
not
them
going
look
to
like
be.
Las Vegas.
And it's
They're not going to be sprays.
it's been
They're
forced
going to be
out.
bubblers.
Development.
We'll take it.
And that really ties into the town of Sunset Beach Pond and Lake Shoreline planning brochure.
Yeah.
I think that the two things work together.
Mhm.
So that's something that the Twin Lakes Subcommittee can work on. Now, we'd like to get something, some kind of initial information made available so that we have it for Sunset at Sunset.
So could we request like little maybe handout if we find information, compile it and print out for the public to give out?
if you find commercially available things?
I don't know.
Mila, I
Commercially
think, I
available
think
or
there's,
could-
I
Go
think
on,
there
planning
are, and it may be through Coastal Federation, there is a group that has some recommended plans and plantings. We may actually have that brochure here at Town Hall. We can look on the way out. I think otherwise it may be available through the Extension Office, the
Yeah.
Cooperative Extension.
Okay.
And then we'd have to
recommended
figure out how to get copies for Sunset at Sunset, if that would work. So there's definitely materials that are out there, and I think just tailoring them to what fits best for our environment.
Yeah, and at this stage, I don't think we have enough time to create our own
Our own.
material.
Right.
So we have to go find what we can find.
What's available? Okay.
We might be able to let them know the aerators and the fountains are now installed. That might be good to let the town's people know. If we hand out, could be a little comment on there that our initiative has done this, at least, so they know we're working on it.
Maybe as soon as they're operational, we can get some photographs of them and then put that on
That might be,
on an email to the
Kudos
town
to you and the
people.
council for getting that
yeah.
done to protect the East Lake.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on those items? Next item is Treat City USA status. Kathy, to qualify for Treat City USA status, the town, we've tried to do this for 5 years.
I've looked at the,
And what we finally realized is that it takes some changes to the ordinance of the town. And Lisa knows what needs to be done, and she's got it on her calendar to get done. So as soon as she gets the drafts of the ordinance changes finished, she can get the council to approve it.
I'm working on the ordinance for the Tree City USA standards, and the council would also need to select a tree committee board.
and there's a
to
budget
go along with that
requirement
process.
too, yeah, but you already have, because you do a lot of tree removal. Yeah.
So that's in process as well.
Yeah, what, we needed the ordinance. We didn't understand the ordinance side of it. We thought that the development ordinances would cover that, but they don't.
No, there's a standard, Lisa knows it now, but there's a standard ordinance.
Right,
I've done some of this with some of my other properties I've worked on.
okay.
You got it.
Standard ordinance, okay.
She can help you.
No, I think she already knows what she needs to do, and
Right.
she's got a great plan.
Yeah,
So speaking of trees, I see a lot of strained trees like pin oaks or water oaks or whatever. Look like they're dying everywhere.
well, you weren't here last month, but they're laurel oaks, and they are weathered by the storms.
Storm.
But also reaching the end
I have
of
one
their
in my
natural
yard. I
life.
noticed it's not. But live oaks are fine. They're called leather oaks.
Laurel,
Laurel oaks.
Laurel oak.
Weathered laurel oak. So they're storms.
and they're
They only
aged
live so long.
laurel
don't
oaks.
So
they've
are
gotten
are they
old.
going to die? Or are they
Yeah.
just,
Yep.
they're just going to die off? Or are they just going to? Will they improve?
They're hitting the end of their natural lifespan, and so as that happens, they're more susceptible. They're weaker. They're more susceptible to damage. So some will go sooner than others. But I think we had Amy Mead, who's the director for the NC Cooperative Extension Office in Bolivia, came down to look at those with us, and Lisa and Dustin were kind enough to get involved with us as well. But when she went out to look, that's what we went through some of the neighborhoods where this was occurring, and she said they're just at the end of their lifespan. And some of them that have damage, they're more susceptible. They'll go faster, but ultimately, this is what's happening to them. Yeah. And as we looked at them, the majority are on private property, so there's not much that the town can do as that's happening.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure there wasn't some type of infestation or disease process going on. She did say some of them do have, like especially some fungal diseases, but it's age related, and some of it just natural to that kind of a tree because of the way that they grow. They're more susceptible.
So it's just nature.
Yeah.
There are some things that you can do to sort of help the tree. You know, one of the things is make sure that you're not mowing grass right up to the base of the tree, you know, put some mulch around the bottom of the tree.
Okay.
Mhm.
I was just curious. I just seen a
Do you
bunch
have
of-
some on your property?
I've got one big one. Yeah, but I noticed others in my neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of them out on the east end there.
Well, and they took a beating in
Yeah.
Ian.
Mhm.
Well, the salt knocked all the
Okay.
leaves off of all the trees,
Yeah.
but the live oaks are fine. Just
I know my live oaks. I thought, oh my gosh, because it looked like half the tree was dead, but they're coming back fine. And she said that they have a longer life. They're a little more adapted for the environment.
Good.
But the laurel oaks, it's a struggle.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not on the agenda, but after talking about all this stuff, I want to throw out the idea that maybe we need to separate green and recycling again in 4 subcommittees.
I think that would be fine because I think recycling could be more active again, and that was part of the reason we combined them. I think with Don leaving.
Um,
7 people.
What are other people's thoughts?
So we only have 7 people, so we can serve on 2 different committees.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
It might make a lot of sense to do it at least for this coming year, so we can, because we've got some different objectives in both of those groups and different. With green, one of the big focuses was Earth Day, Arbor Day, and now that we've got Amy here to help, that's taken some of that pressure, but we're also moving in a different direction with that. I'm so sorry.
My suggestion would be to let the committee that you've established meet and sort of determine a objective list and see if there's enough for each area to split.
We could do that.
Okay. Well, let's table that idea and
Look at it next month.
look at it next month.
And maybe, could everybody come with maybe 3 key things you think that committee is trying to do this year? Then you could see maybe any overlap and also what the major things are. I mean, if you came with 3 things, it would expedite that, don't you think? Like bullet points, maybe, of what you think would be important for green and what's important for recycling.
Well, I think probably the easiest would be the 3 of us that are going to do green and recycling to take a look,
We need to meet.
see how we think it could be divided up, come back with that, and
Yeah, to
if
move it
other
forward.
committee members have some ideas, that's where we could say, okay, maybe this could be in there too.
Mhm.
And then if we have a better idea what it is, we might know who wants to volunteer
Yeah,
for what.
yeah. Well, it would just be good, then you can start hashing out. You'd have it that much forward.
Yeah.
With
No,
the short time
clearly,
frame you're looking
clearly,
at.
I mean, essentially green and recycling is starting over because I'm
Mhm.
only the only person continuing. Mila was on that till the Twin Lakes came up,
Uh-huh.
and she had to step back because she was working so much on Twin Lakes.
Mhm.
And Don Eggert was kind of our recycling expert, and he just retired from the group in June. So, and John has been there sort of as our backup person, but clearly he's got a lot on his plate with climate and Twin Lakes. So I think it's a great time to take a look at that, and we can meet as a group and talk about what we think the objectives ought to be, and then come back and present that.
I'm trying to figure out where we can fit Jennifer into the subcommittees the best.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, I know I'd like to do Twin Lakes just because I've contacted, before I even knew I was going to be on the committee, I contacted a couple people about that for grant reasons and things to try to help with the lakes. So. And I know
Well,
there's
I can
2
certainly
appointments.
back up and just help as a volunteer when I needed.
Mhm.
If
on
that,
Twin Lakes.
if that would
I
facilitate.
I
things.
was just going to suggest the same way that I act as a resource, you
Yeah.
can be a resource
Sure.
to the.
Okay.
Twin
Yeah. For
Lakes.
instance, when Mila was gone and I could meet
Mhm.
with Rob.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Thank you. So Jennifer, you're going to be on the Twin Lakes subcommittee.
Mhm. I'm happy to volunteer for whatever else. I like the green. I do.
Well, I
Right now I just got to get my feet wet first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we all have to think of ourselves as resources for helping the other subcommittees
Yeah.
when they're needed.
Mhm.
So
Do you still have, how about climate? Are you at 3 or you're just at 2?
we're at 2 right now.
I know you had mentioned you might have some
Yeah.
interest in climate. Would you want to work with
Yeah.
them on that as well? Or
Either, whichever one's best needed. I think I'm more suited to the green, but I mean, I'm not an engineer or anything about soil erosion and sediment and all that. I'm happy to help. Yeah.
well, leave where we are for now and revisit it when
Yeah,
we
let's
come back
revisit it
next
again
month.
next month. Are there any other ideas anybody has?
Could you summarize then who is on green and recycling, Twin Lakes, and climate, and what are their key topics? I've been trying to keep good notes, but do we know that, or
Yeah.
because I sense we're getting to the end, and I was trying to make sure I had my marching orders.
All right.
You hang on
Climate
one
is
second.
Steve and I, Steve
Okay.
Hines and I.
Okay, good.
Excuse me, John.
Okay, so climate is you and Steve?
So we have 2 Steves, so it's Steve Hines.
Yeah.
Twin Lakes is Mila, Steve Hines, Jennifer.
Oh, Steve. Okay, that's what I got wrong. Okay.
And green recycling are Kathy, Steve Levine, and Candace.
Okay, I had it right. Thank you.
Correct? I got
That's
that
what I
right?
thought I had. But
All right.
it's okay.
All right. Any public comments? There's no public anymore.
No, we scared them away.
All right. We need a motion to adjourn.
Can I ask one more question before we adjourn?
Sure.
So obviously, it's acceptable for a commit like what the Green Recycling Committee. The 3 of us can get together, discuss topics, etc. We can also meet with the town staff and us individually, or like if we needed information.
Yes, if you need information, you can email the town staff or
Okay.
stop by and talk to them.
Okay.
I guess,
Town council members too, but only 2 at a time.
right. If you have questions, you just don't know how things are done, you can contact me or you can contact other members of the committee and ask questions about that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But we might tell you we don't know. You know, go ask Lisa or go ask Dustin or.
Well, and I don't want to overstep if somebody's already, like you mentioned, you had met with UNCW's person. So if we were looking at potential funding sources or grants or anything, I'd kind of like to know if they've already been contacted. That's kind of what I'd want to know. Let's don't inundate these people with different people contacting them and get off.
That's the value of working through the subcommittee, that
Right.
they're
Yeah.
keeping track.
For all of those questions, you can talk to Mila. She's
Okay.
the warehouse of knowledge in that area.
All right.
And there is a volunteer in the community that helps quite a bit with Twin Lakes.
Oh,
so.
good. Okay.
And you know Mary?
Mary Hughes.
Mary Hughes?
I know who she is. I don't know.
Yeah, she's been a volunteer and she's
Okay.
done a lot of
Okay. I know.
the work on the grants and a lot of the help with the research too.
Good.
Any other questions? All right, then we need a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor? Aye.
Public
Thank you.
comment? Do we have public comment?
Bye, Katie.